Mental health is real, seek help, and the stigma. On the news this evening, stakeholder reacts to Governor Fubara's decision to sack commissioners and aides. Court upholds President Tinubu's emergency declaration in Rivers State. High Court dismisses suit over removal of officials of Local Government Service Commission. Former Vice President Atiku denies plans to step down ahead of 2027 election. On the foreign scene, police classified deadly Manchester synagogue attack as terrorism. I'm Sam Chinedu, and the news continues after the break. Welcome back. Stakeholders in Rivers State are now reacting to Governor Siminalayi Fubara's decision to relieve commissioners and aides affected by the Supreme Court ruling of their duties. A public affairs analyst, Obiwan Akanwa, says the governor's action is a respect to the Supreme Court judgment and not political weakness. Ms. Akanwa gave this explanation during an interview with correspondent Soibi Oruwari.
When you look at the fact that he has allowed few others who possibly may have been screened by the Amerhule-led assembly, it means that he has a recourse and respect for court decisions. His supporters would see it that, look, our leader is conforming to laid down rules and laws, and most importantly, decision of a court of that higher hierarchy. They can't interpret it differently.
He said the governor took the right step to ensure that the peace pact he signed with the FCT minister before President Bola Tinubu is not truncated.
The governor is trying to recover some lost grounds. It is within his constitutional powers as the head of the executive to relieve political appointees of their positions when he deems it necessary and appropriate. You can't win all at the same time. There are times when you allow few things to go, and that is just the position. He found himself in a very precarious position.
And to court matters now, the Federal High Court in Abuja has dismissed a suit instituted challenging the March 18, 2025 proclamation of a state of emergency in Rivers State. Delivering judgment in a suit filed by Belema Briggs and 4 others, Justice James Omotosho held that the 5 plaintiffs lacked the legal power to institute the case. The judge said such a case as constituted can only be determined by the Supreme Court. In the judgment on Thursday, the judge held that none of the 5 plaintiffs claimed to be members of the State Executive Committee, members of the House of Assembly, or suffered any injury greater than the rest of the people of Rivers State. The court also held that none of the plaintiffs claimed to have the fiat of the Attorney General of the state to initiate the case. Justice Omotosho said that the claim of President Tinubu that he imposed the state of emergency to avoid a looming breakdown of law and order was not challenged or disputed by the plaintiffs. Justice Omotosho further held that the claim of breach of fundamental rights by the plaintiffs against Tinubu did not hold water. The appropriate law on emergency rule order was invoked by President Tinubu to save the unpleasant situation. Justice Omotosho said the case was frivolous and baseless because the mandate of other people of Rivers was not obtained before instituting. As you may know, the declaration of the state of emergency led to the suspension of the River State Governor, Siminalayi Fubara, and members of the River State House of Assembly for 6 months. It also led to the appointment of an administrator who took charge of running the affairs of the state for the period. And still on court stories, a state high court in Port Harcourt has struck out a suit filed by the chairman and members of the River State Local Government Service Commission, appointed by Governor Siminalayi Fubara, but later removed by former sole administrator, retired Vice Admiral Ibokete Ibas. The claimants, Goodlife Idioku Ben, Amadi Christian Echele, Chimenem Jerome, and 3 others, had challenged their removal and replacement by another set of appointees. Correspondent Emeka Otoka reports that at the hearing, counsel to the claimants, Kelechi Ubani, informed the court of his client's decision to discontinue the case, describing it as painful but necessary step in the interest of peace and progress of the state. However, counsel to the defendants urged the court to dismiss the case instead of striking it out. Delivering ruling on the application, presiding Judge Justice Frank Onyiri described the motion by defendants' counsel for dismissal of the suit as baseless, citing some authorities against the motion. Justice Onyiri, however, cited Order 25, Rule 1, and struck out the suit as prayed by the claimant's counsel, but declined to award cost. The Independence Day broadcast by President Bola Tinubu is still generating reactions. A business analyst in Port Harcourt, Ignatius Chukwu, says the claims by President Bola Tinubu that corruption has ended in the country are not entirely true. Mr. Chukwu made this criticism in an interview with correspondent Soibi Oruwari.
In the speech, there's no massive program rolled out against corruption. That may be because the president said one week ago that corruption has ended in his country. All the things that amount to corruption are still there. You cannot submit any form or any file in any government agency or ministry without paying money. And the president stands up to say corruption has ended. Is the president seen in another country, or is it the country we are seeing where he said corruption has ended?
Mr. Ignatius Chukwu, who is also the regional editor of Business Press, he had not shown enough support of the youth.
The president said showed how he's encouraging the youth, students to loan fund. They appear cosmetic to me. There are no radical programs for the youth. There's nobody who has come up with a national football or sports policy scheme that will make every talented child to get success, to achieve success through his talent. No such policies, and that is the area that he needs attention.
He said some policies of the federal government still show that the country has not come out of the pains of the pre-independence years.
Building a nation where every Nigerian will find accommodation in another part message to be so.
The bar agreed with the president's claim that there is hope for the economy to recover from seeming collapse.
The president said that the signs of growth are there. Yes, we agree, signs of growth are there. Some of us have seen those signs. That shows it with the GDP is doing well, galloping at 4 point something when the World Bank and the IMF they predicted 3 point something. Inflation is flying from 34% down to 20.2%. Although many people say who pushed the inflation up, it's the same administration that pushed it up. So if it is coming down, they say it's not an achievement. But me, I regard it as an achievement because coming down almost half.
Authorities in River State seem determined to tackle the menace of land grabbing. This is according to the chairman of Obiabo Local Government Area, Dr. Gift Walu. Speaking on Nigeria Info FM's Hard Facts, Dr. Walu said there is a connection between land grabbing and kidnapping, called it a menace in the state. The Obiabo chairman said government officials, security agents, and judicial officials are also linked to land grabbing menace in the state.
It is something that is kidnapping. There is murder to eat, and then of course there is the problem of compromise on the part of some impetuous security officials. And land grabbing is such that it's difficult to know now who a land grabber is, because people are grabbing land left, right, and center.
Dr. Wallace to write to the president, the governor, and the legislatures on way to solve the problem of land grabbing in the state. He also suggested the formation of a statewide committee to tackle the problem.
what is happening in Rivers State today if it is not checked. And that is why I am putting almost everything within me and seeking the collaboration of all winning people, including officials of government, so that we can tackle this matter. I am putting together petitions and reports to be served to the governor of the state, chief judge, commissioner of police, DSS, inspector general of police, the National Assembly, state assembly, and even the president on this matter because of how serious it is.
And we move over to politics at a national level. President Atiku Abubakar has dismissed reports suggesting that he intends to step down for another presidential aspirant ahead of the 2027 elections. In a statement issued on Thursday by his media advisor, Paul Ibe, Atiku described such claims as a misrepresentation of his recent interview with the BBC Hausa service. Ibe explained that a careful review of both the video and transcripts of the interview showed that Atiku never said, suggested, or implied that he intends to step down for anyone. Chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, has warned that uncertainty over the legal framework for the 2027 general election could unsettle the Commission's preparations. Speaking while receiving a delegation of the European Union Election Observation Follow-up Mission to Nigeria, Professor Yakubu appealed to the National Assembly to expedite action on the electoral reform proposal currently before it. He warned that reforms in the judiciary, administration, and constitution remain too slow, with transparency in result publication still unresolved. Still to come, Pengassan denies signing communique ending Dangote refinery strike. Stay tuned. Welcome back. The National Association of Resident Doctors, NARD, says over 35% of Nigerian children under 5 years are affected by malnutrition. In a post on X on Thursday, the resident doctors described the menace as a critical public health challenge. It said malnutrition contributes significantly to child mortality and also impacts cognitive development, disease susceptibility, and national productivity. A power expert, Adetunji Adesonya, says to achieve the needed reforms in the power sector, President Bola Tinubu should employ the services of technocrats who understand the technicalities of the sector. Mr. Adesonya gave this advice in an interview with correspondent Obiruwari while speaking on the gains and losses made in the sector in the last 65 years of Nigeria. He said to tackle the continued national grid collapse, technocrats should be allowed to take over the operation of the sector.
When you see a line being dropped and it's sag going, you will see it sag. When it's sag, the conductivity field will now be breached by the axe and it will continue to trip. Once it's having heavy load, it will pass on the grid instability. It will collapse. And improper planning also contributes to it. The solution is to put the technocrats. Forget the education background. Put the technocrats. It's technocrats that have worked in the field for 20, 35 years that can be in a quarter, be direct because he knows the terrain. He will tell you, my friend, don't deceive me. This is what it entails.
He also expressed concern that there has not been constant power supply for the past 3 decades, despite the technology being developed in
They
the
go on and they will disguise to you that this particular, like a feeder feeding your community now, they will disguise to you that is on from the control room. But is it supplying the entire consumer on it? No!
The Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, Pengasan, has clarified that it did not sign the communique that ended its recent strike against Dangote Refinery. The union suspended its nationwide strike on Wednesday after government intervention, but insisted its concerns were not fully addressed. Pengasan President Festo said a document presented at the meeting was not an agreement. Ukraine must defeat rising Semitic hate after 2 people are killed in an attack at a Manchester synagogue. Directly addressing the UK's Jewish community, he says he'll do everything in his power to give the security they deserve. 2 people died and 4 are in hospital after the car and stabbing attack, which police have declared a terrorist incident. Police shot the attacker dead within 7 minutes of the first 999 call. Officers later made 2 other arrests. And that's the news for this hour. But before we go, another look at the headlines. We told you that a stakeholder has commended Governor Fubara's decision to sack commissioners and aides affected by the Supreme Court ruling. You heard that the court has upheld President Tinubu's emergency declaration in Rivers State. We reported that the High Court has dismissed a suit over removal of officials of Local Government Service Commission. We informed you that former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has denied down ahead of 2027 presidential election. On the foreign scene, police have classified the deadly Manchester synagogue attack as terrorism. The news was edited by Onyekachi Wonsu. To reach the news team, send an SMS or WhatsApp to 0808 721 7215. I'm Sam Chinedu. Thanks for listening.